Being recorded, got it. Slideshow. Have we heard from? Oh, we do have attendees. Great. So
Yeah, we've got 21 attendees at the moment.
great. Um, Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining from around the world, I imagine. Um,
Hello, I'm David Moss, Professor of Anthropology and Director of the Centre for Anthropology and Mental Health Research in Action. Very pleased to be with you. Others on the call, do we have a quick round of introductions so we know who's here and who will be contributing later on?
Thanks, David. Hello, everyone. I'm John Lowenthal. I'm CAMHRA's Education and Training Officer.
I'm Nicole Marin. I'm a MRes student. That's where I have to do right.
Hi, my name is Hania Yusufi. I'm on the Medical Anthropology and Mental Health program, and I'm also a CAMHRA scholar.
Yeah, so both Nicole and Hania are current CAMHRA scholars from the MRes and the MA.
And hello, I'm Sophia Lassico. I'm the CAMHRA coordinator. I will make sure that your questions in the Q&A are recorded.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do is maybe I think we've got a slide that says what we're going to do. We're going to introduce CAMHRA very quickly and introduce the MA Medical Anthropology and Mental Health, and then tell you something about the scholarship program that we have running and say something about the application process. And we'll hear from some of our, as we've just heard, two of our current students, both on the Masters and the MRes, Masters in Research. Now, all of the information is available on the CAMHRA website and the SOAS web pages. So we're going to whisk through these slides so that we have enough time for what's most important in a webinar, which is for you to put your questions, your thoughts, and have our responses. So without more ado, I'll just say a little bit about CAMHRA. CAMHRA is a centre that brings anthropology and mental health research together. It's one of the few such centres in the world, thinking what anthropology can contribute to research on mental health, bringing together the specific methodologies, the particular theory, the particular approach of anthropology to mental health. I think there's the next couple of slides cover that. If you wanted to move that on, John.
Yeah.
So we have been funded for a period of 5 years, but we'll continue after that, bringing together world-leading scholars and researchers from anthropology working on mental health. And we have a PhD research program as well. I think we have the next slide or a couple of slides. So, I mean, I won't reiterate in great detail, but if you're new to anthropology, you probably will grasp that anthropology is distinctive in the sense it's the most, it's between the humanities and the social sciences. It's a deeply qualitative discipline. We understand phenomena that we're interested in by becoming a part of the thing we want to understand. Therefore, the methodology is distinctively participatory. It's holistic in the sense of interconnecting different aspects of the phenomena we want to understand and places everything in a comparative perspective. We're interested, and it's particularly so here at SOAS, in the view of things from different cultures, societies, communities across the world. So we're always decentering the Euro-American, often dominant way of viewing things and applying this as much to mental health research as anything else. Can we have the next couple of slides, maybe? In our program of the MA program, we're particularly keen to be open to people working in the mental health field, clinically qualified as well as not qualified people who are interested in discovering what anthropology can contribute and maybe part of the organizations that are struggling to bring change and bring innovation in delivering effective mental health care. We've had on our program people from the NHS in the UK, but also professionals working in mental health from other countries and programs. But it doesn't require that you have any background in medicine, in clinical practice, clinical qualifications to be part of our program. This is a program which introduces you both to anthropology as a discipline and to the field of mental health research in relation to anthropology. So this is the core members, academic members of our of CAMHRA, and we are supported by an amazing administrative support team who offer support to students on the MA program, which falls under the umbrella of the Centre for Anthropology and Mental Health Research. So next slide, where do we go? So just a few things about the MA. In this MA, you will get a grounding in anthropology as a discipline. You don't have to have a background in anthropology. It's like a bridging program that introduces you to the discipline, explains the theory, as well as introducing you to medical anthropology. Excuse me. So these are some of the key aims and outcomes: to understand from diverse perspectives, questions of health and human suffering, varied forms of healing and treatment, providing you a training in anthropological approaches to these things, drawing on the core resources and evidence that anthropologists focus on, which derives from ethnographic research as well as clinical knowledge and lived experience of mental health and mental health care from across different cultures. Understanding how health and mental health is shaped by historical and social forces, including major changes that we're experiencing at the moment, such as climate change, intersecting inequalities, including of race and gender. And you will be introduced to and develop, particularly through your master's dissertation, which we'll say something about in a moment, skills in anthropological analysis and methodological skills in ethnographic and qualitative research. The teaching is very much grounded in the research that we do at the centre. You'll be taught by people who are actively engaged in and currently involved in research, which is both draws on clinical and ethnographic skills. And we work and produce outputs in a range of different genres. We use creative tools and media and involved and work closely with communities in the various fields in which we work. You'll have supervision for your work, academic work through people with clinical and academic expertise, and a wide range. And the great advantage of SOAS is you have wide access to a wide range of researchers interested in the specific cultures and languages and histories of different societies and parts of the world. People come into SOAS from a wide range of different backgrounds. As I mentioned, not only healthcare, but also including healthcare professionals who are very welcome. So it's a full-time 1 year, part-time 2 years, or even over 3 years. We teach the program in 2 teaching semesters. We have, as part of the program, you have 5 compulsory modules, 3 optional modules. We'll explain those in just a minute. Each module requires about 2 hours of participation, a lecture that you will attend in person, and a tutorial group you'll attend in person. Obviously, preparation and reading for that ahead of time, as well as the main or key element, which accounts for 60 out of the total credits, a dissertation, which you will have individual supervision and guidance throughout the year, but especially completed in the second part of the program. So these are the compulsory modules. The Medical Anthropology and Global Perspectives introduces you to medical anthropology, biomedical assumptions, some of the things I've just been mentioning about different approaches to suffering and healing. Mind, Culture and Psychiatry, a module that I teach, looking at psychiatry and in relation to other diagnostic and healing traditions, the history of psychiatry, and the anthropological evidence and perspectives and ethnographic research in relation to psychiatry. And then Bodies and Cultures, looking at the materiality of bodies, experiences and practices. And then you have a core body of 2 modules which ground you in ethnographic, how you become an anthropologist through the training you received in ethnographic research methods, on the one hand, about what is involved with ethnography, what fieldwork involves, and so forth. And then a contemporary anthropological theory, which introduces you to the key theoretical understandings and approaches of anthropology. So there are a range of optional modules that you can take, some of them located in the anthropology department, like a directed practical study where you can do a placement in the field that you organize yourself, but you bring anthropological reflections to bear on your work and lived working experience. And then you have ethnographic modules that focus on particular regions. You have thematic modules like race, gender, and sexuality, or migration, borders, and space, diet, society, and environment. And then you can select from open options from around the university, from other departments as well, to top up your credits. So John, I think, is going to take us through the Master's Scholarship program so that you know what you need to do if you're interested in applying for one of our fees-only scholarships.
Thank you very much, David. And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. We appreciate you might be joining from all over the world, and we're delighted that we have scholarships that we can offer to applicants from all over the world. As part of CAMHRA's aim of introducing anthropological perspectives to kind of mental health research and practice, there are these CAMHRA scholarships. And in some regards, there's a kind of social justice aspect to the scholarships, making anthropological study available to people who might not have otherwise had the opportunity. So they can be for financial or social constraints. We have students coming in straight after an undergraduate degree. We have some students who are working professionals with other responsibilities. You can include these fuller aspects of your life in your scholarship application. We are also looking to develop a new crop of researchers and professionals and practitioners at this intersection of anthropology and mental health. If this is a kind of combination that excites you, if you think this is where you might wish to dedicate your career, we'd be delighted and privileged to hear from you and to have you on our programs. So there are 7 full-time equivalent scholarships we can offer this coming academic year and for 2 further academic years. There are 3 international fees places and 4 home fees places that we can offer. Now, this will be open to applicants to either the MA Medical Anthropology and Mental Health that David was describing, or the MRes in Social Anthropology. I'll describe that degree in a moment. These are fee-only scholarships. In most instances, we do have an exceptional circumstances stipend for students who are either living in or citizen of Iran or Iraq. But in most instances, it is a fee-only scholarship. Okay, a quick note on the MRes. So Master's in Research in Social Anthropology. It's a more research-intensive degree. So if you know that you would like to do a PhD in anthropology, this could potentially be a more suitable degree for you. You would have the opportunity to study the same SOAS modules that David just outlined. A key distinction, and Nicole is on this MRes, so Nicole might be able to speak some more to this. There is a deeper research component. So there's a supervisory relationship from the start of your degree. There's training in advanced methods, including quantitative methods. There's a research training seminar. The dissertation is also longer. It's 15,000 words as opposed to 10,000 words. And there's a greater focus on methods. So it's worth doing some investigation, and there's more information on the web pages. The MRes could be for you if you really think you want to have a research career. That could be through a training as a social scientist. It could be in preparation for PhD research. There's some just considerations for eligibility. Now, this is all on the web page, so I don't need to go into too much detail. Generally, for the MRes, you're expected to have a background in anthropology. If you don't, then you'd be expected to at least have a master's degree. The scholarships are competitive, so we do expect students to have at least a 2-1 in a bachelor's degree. Yeah, all of this information is outlined in further detail on the webpage. For those international applicants who do get awarded the scholarship and also who get awarded a place on our master's degrees, we would encourage you to get your visa applications in as soon as possible. and the government will request some evidence of you being able to support yourself financially. So it's just worth us mentioning that. Yes, we are glad, given global circumstances, however modest, we are able to offer a living stipend to students who are from either Iran or Iraq. So please do, if this is relevant to you, please do make that known in your CAMHRA Master Scholarship application. I'll mention that in a moment. So yeah, candidates will be assessed by a selection panel based on academic merit, research proposal, personal statement, responses to the scholarship application prompts, and considerations of equality, diversity, and inclusion. Shortlisted applicants will be invited to interview. So there's an application to a degree program, either the MA or the MRes, and then independently, after applying to a degree, there's a CAMHRA Master Scholarship application portal. And there are these 3 questions. Each question has a maximum of 500 words. Why anthropology? Why mental health? Why CAMHRA? Please feel free to bring in as much of your whole self as you see fit. Next, please provide details about the research project that you hope to conduct. Now, we would encourage you to engage with some prior research, perhaps even research conducted and published by researchers based at CAMHRA, to give a sense of, okay, well, you know, on your master's dissertation, what might you like to study, like to discover, like to find out, with which communities, which research questions, which academic literatures might you be building upon? So this is an opportunity to just lean into that more academic side of your kind of candidate profile. And then the third point is, how do you imagine that your degree may enable you to positively impact the world? This may be in the communities in which you currently live and work, or in those in which you may live and work in the future. So yeah, we'd like to hear some of your hopes and dreams and ambitions and how you might use your learning at SOAS going forward. So there are these 3 steps. Have a look into the different degrees, which one might be most suitable to you, the MA or the MRes. Submit your application prior to this deadline of the 30th of April. Now, that deadline is for the CAMHRA Master Scholarship. You don't need to hear an outcome on your degree application, but you do need to have first submitted an application. And then please do submit your scholarship application by the 30th of April, midnight UK time. And then in the course of May, we'll go through a shortlisting process. In early June, we will invite some applicants to interview. That will be an online interview, likely held later on in June. So that's all from me for now. Oh, yeah, David, you're on mute.
Just to clarify, if you go back one slide, just to clarify for people that we require you to have submitted an application to the master's program before you submit your application for the scholarship program. That's correct. Is that was the point you were saying, making that distinction? Thanks, John. That was great. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thanks, David. Yeah. So and actually the scholarship application is within the portal which you access from the application to a program.
Yeah.
So thanks, David, and yeah, thank you all. Please do, if you have further questions, some of them you might be able to find the information on the webpage. You can also ask them in a moment. I'll just briefly introduce, so Nicole and Hania are both currently studying on the MRes and the MA, and well, it might be that we have some questions that others wish to ask current students. I don't know if I can ask just a little bit of something about how it's been for each of you. There's been, Nicole, you've migrated internationally for the degree. Hania, you came down from up north for the degree. Yeah, can I ask, how has it been? Any insights you might be able to share with those on the webinar?
Yeah, you can pass it.
So I'm doing an MRes here, and it has been really good because I already had a background in anthropology, and I realized that I wanted to continue research, but specifically in the field of mental health. And I didn't have any background in medical anthropology. So with the MRes, you have freedom to choose from every optional module that you have. So the mandatory ones are only research focused. And for my interest, I also took part in all the MA medical and mental health modules, which has been very helpful for me. I had a research idea from the start, but through these classes and meeting professors and other students, I was really supported into exploring different ideas, and I completely changed actually my initial idea, but now I feel way more set and like just sure about what I'm about to do. So it has been very helpful under most things, I think.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, so my background is in psychology. I've never studied anthropology before, and whilst I enjoyed my psychology degree, I felt like there was an element missing. It was always very focused on individuals, and for me, I think, and we talk a lot about this a lot in some of the modules we've studied as well, about like what actually needs to be normal in the current state of affairs we're in, and that's why it felt a bit removed for me when I was learning about different concepts in psychology and different therapies. And that's why I was kind of looking for something that would fill that gap. And then I just kind of stumbled across the degree. So I knew about SOAS initially as a university, and I thought it was a very interesting institution foregrounding global South perspectives. And then I came across the MA Medical Anthropology degree, which integrates anthropology and mental health. And I think it's definitely changed my mind about kind of what kind of route I want to go down, or if I still aspire to be a psychologist, kind of integrate more anthropological methods in that. As an institution, I really enjoy going to SOAS. It's very different from my undergrad. I studied at Sheffield and I really loved it there as well. But SOAS has a much bigger international community and it's very, very diverse. Like you'll meet so many interesting people and you'll learn so much from these people as well. And I think one thing that I really learned, I think something I've kind of always had a bit of, but something that's come out more studying anthropology is being more critical. And I think that's why it's a really complementary field to disciplines like psychology or like whatever other backgrounds you might be coming from. And I think it really helps you have a more critical eye and, inevitably produce better research and better systems for us moving forward.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Yeah, Jacob, are you going to come in there?
Just so we can open it up for questions from people participating in the webinar, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Please do put them in the chat. And
is that we follow them in the chat, or maybe somebody can follow the chat.
Yeah, I think that's how it is. I think Shafir's helping us with that because the nature of the webinar, people can't speak out.
Yeah, so there is a Q&A button at the bottom. So if people click on there and then just submit the questions, we can answer them either verbally or written in the question and answer section. Okay, and we just got the first one.
So we've got one from Haley. Thank you, Haley. In the application statement, would it be wise to add citations to prior research you've done? Yes, if you've done research, then you should certainly add citations within the limits of the word limits that you have. But it would be great to know about individual research that you've been involved in. We have a second question. I'm an immigrant on a post-study work visa right now. I finished my master's degree last year in psychology. Could you please advise me with how does this go in terms of the visa process? John, do you have any insights on the visa specific question there?
Yeah, I imagine there would be a further visa produced as a student visa for someone who's a non-UK citizen. And yeah, as far as I know, it might start that visa process again. I'm afraid I can't provide detailed insights. Someone from SOAS Scholarships might be able to help with that question. You can also write to me if you find me on the CAMHRA website. You can also follow up with that question.
So we have a question here. Is CAMHRA supporting students with lived experience of mental distress, mental illness? Well, there's two parts to that question. We're very interested to involve people who draw on their lived experience of mental distress, mental illness, and bring that as a source of insight, of evidence, of experience into their studies. We are, of course, an academic department and institution, So we support you academically with your studies. SOAS also has a student well-being and counselling service should that be needed. But as an academic and teaching centre, we support your academic studies. And you look to the other parts of the institution or outside of the institution for your healthcare, just to be clear on the distinction there. We have a question from Umani from South Africa. My academic background is in psychology and sociology. I'm particularly interested in how cultural frameworks shape mental health understanding in the current African context. How does CAMHRA Scholarships support students who want to bridge indigenous and biomedical approaches to mental health, particularly in the African context? In what ways does CAMHRA program encourage collaboration between students from different cultural and disciplinary backgrounds? Maybe our two students can answer certainly the last bit, collaboration between students from different cultural and disciplinary backgrounds.
Yeah, we've learned quite a lot in psychiatry, specifically in our global perspectives module about like different, well, more so in psychiatry, of different like cultural frameworks and like how we can integrate that with like existing biomedical models. I think it would be really, really valuable to kind of delve more deeply into like African like idioms of distress and like mental health frameworks, because I think that's something we've not explored as much. I think there has been quite a big focus on like Asian context as well. So I think it would be really amazing to have people from kind of different backgrounds bring their kind of expertise as well. And I think the academics here really help you, they guide you and they help you kind of flesh those ideas out and explore it further. And hopefully that answers the question.
Well, I think the question, we could also just give a resounding yes, absolutely. Your interest and your background sound brilliant, and we'd love to kind of receive an application from you.
So we have another anonymous attendee, someone who isn't from an anthropology background, wants to know if we could elaborate a bit more on how to approach the research question, particularly for someone who's applying for the MA, not the MRes. Are we expected to mention methodology? I think because we should say a bit more about that, because you will be developing your research dissertation, which can be based on your original research, can be based on library studies, secondary sources, with a supervisor. You will be developing all of these, how to frame a research question, what methodologies to involve in the course of it, in the course of the program. So we don't expect those details in your application. We simply expect some idea of any particular field of interest that you have, or any particular question that you're keen. Is there something you're particularly motivated to find out about, apart from the general program, that you might want to make the focus of your dissertation? It's at that rather general level, rather than the specific detail of a proposed piece of research that we expect at this stage. The session is being recorded. Those who joined late can I don't know, how will they access the recording? That'll be on the website, right?
Yeah, so CAMHRA has a YouTube channel. There's quite a lot of interesting videos already there. It will join the YouTube channel, and it will also be available on the website. And also, if you're not subscribed to CAMHRA mailing list, and we have a newsletter, so it'll be on the CAMHRA website, YouTube, and communicated by the mailing list.
So an important question here from Dr. Chrissy J, working clinically in the NHS and wants to do the MA part-time. What day of the week is required for the face-to-face seminars? So that, if you're doing it over 2 years, it depends in any given year which modules you choose to do in which years. The compulsory modules, the 5 compulsory modules, have to be done at some point, and they have their particular days. Off the top of my head, but it may change. You know, just for example, if you were doing the medical anthropology core module, that was on a Wednesday, and the mind, culture, and psychiatry module was on a Friday. And you did the anthropology theory module, and maybe that was also on a Wednesday. Those would be the 2 days. But you will have some flexibility not in when the modules are taught, but in how you choose to schedule which year you do them. Obviously, there's a schedule for semester for first semester and a schedule for the second semester. These are details that you could discuss with your with the MA with your course program convener. So we've got a question. I haven't done an undergrad, but I have an MBA where my dissertation looked at social science and methods and ethnography. Would I be eligible for an MA? You are eligible for an MA, the MA, regardless of your disciplinary background. It's only the MRes, the Masters in Research, that requires that you have an anthropology background before you're eligible to apply. So for the MA, you can have a range of different disciplinary backgrounds. Obviously, you need to have some familiarity with the social sciences or humanities. If you have an exclusively, I don't know, mathematics and physics background, we might want to know a little bit more about your ability to work in the field of social science and humanities. But generally speaking, the wide range of backgrounds is permissible in terms of your application, provided you have a good degree result in your first degree or an MA if you already have one. John, are you reading ahead? If you've seen any that's...
Yeah, so I've got, thank you. I'm a mature international student, having accepted my MA offer. I graduated in 2014 in sociology, just below a 2-1, but have since built extensive professional experience in mental health and global health equity as a mid-career practitioner. Given this background, will I still be eligible and encouraged to apply for a scholarship?
Yes, you could certainly apply for a scholarship. And building professional experience into your application as well as your academic qualifications is an important criteria that we would be looking for, relevant experience in selecting the strongest candidates. So certainly you'd be encouraged to apply.
Yeah, just with that, CAMHRA scholars from last year's round came at different ages and career stages, and so that's great. Bringing different professional experiences into your application is encouraged and will strengthen your application.
So there's another question from Matilda. Understands that to get an MRes would need to have a background in anthropology, but now I wonder whether this would be the pathway I should apply to. If that's because you don't have a background in anthropology, and then the recommendation would be to do the MA rather than the MRes. And let me just say, if you were interested in doing a PhD and you want to build a research career in anthropology in relation to mental health, you could equally do that by doing the MA, because if you complete the MA and you've done a good dissertation, you can go straight on from your MA to do a PhD, to register for a PhD. You could also do that from an MRes. So by following the MA as opposed to the MRes, you're no less qualified to apply for the PhD program.
But do you mind me just coming in there, David? There can be a distinction. For students who have completed the MA, absolutely. Sometimes for students who are just starting the MA, if you don't have a background in anthropology, you then start the MA in medical anthropology and mental health. Some PhD programs, including ours at SOAS, may wonder whether you have enough of an anthropology background to yet be developing a research project at PhD level. Once you've got the degree for the MA, definitely. If you're still a student and you don't have an anthropology background, there might be a question mark. That's all.
So that's as much a question of timing, and you might be offered a conditional. You might be considered kind of conditionally, because it would depend upon the outcome of your masters, which would not be known until the end of the year. I hope I've got that. I hope I've got that right. So there is some. Yes, the transition to the PhD would be smoother if you did the MRes, but it's still possible, although the timing of such, there might be some conditionalities for a PhD entry if you've come straight from the MA program. And of course, results dependent on the grades that you get, and especially the grades you get in your dissertation. Does the program include any modules or training in quantitative methods or ways for gaining experience with data analysis? The MA medical anthropology and mental health doesn't include quantitative methods. If you are doing a PhD program, I think you are required to do some quantitative modules, but no, we don't have quantitative. Am I right about the MRes?
I think in the MRes it's mandatory, but there were also students that were from other courses at the university that chose as an elective.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it might be possible also for people that are doing an MA if they want to.
Is it possible to apply for the scholarship to start this year, having applied the previous year? I have been accepted onto the program, but the application was unsuccessful. Is it possible to apply for the scholarship that started this year? A separate application portal. That's quite a complicated question. It might be worth dropping an email to get a more bespoke answer to that. Because if you want to defer an entry that's already been accepted and reapply for the scholars, you probably have to reapply this year rather than use the deferred entry, is my assumption. John, does that make sense?
Yeah, well, if you're still able to access the portal, there is, I understand, a kind of homepage, and if you have login details still, you might be able to just access the scholarship application and apply. Maybe if you can see if you can get that far, and contact the SOAS scholarships email address if any issues come up.
There's a question here about somebody who's a psychology student, so maybe we can get a lived experience answer to that as a psychology student. What was your experience?
So, yeah, did you see the question?
Yeah.
So, to what extent does CAMHRA support practice-oriented engagement in addition to academic research? Sorry, is this one? So, I'm a psychology student trying to get into this program. Since I'm new to anthropology and its methods, I greatly admire previous works. How perfect or how well should I draft my research proposal?
So when I was going into it, I was mainly trained in quantitative and qualitative methods. I was very unfamiliar with kind of ethnographic approaches. And I think that was also kind of reflected in my research proposal. I kind of had kind of the research questions, the rationale, the aim, and that still can translate to like ethnographic approaches. But regardless of that, it was still fine. I think the main thing is like the general idea. And I think for me, I really enjoy ethnographic and anthropological approaches more than qualitative and quantitative approaches because it feels a bit more open. I'm not saying that it's not structured and it's not methodical and you don't have to think things through, but it's like you have a bit more, I don't know if flexibility is the right word, but you can kind of approach different things in a different way that maybe would give you richer insights compared to quantitative and qualitative methods. So yeah, I personally really like that. And I think it's really complementary to quantitative methods because I think there's only so much you can get from them. I remember doing my undergrad dissertation in quantitative methods. And even as I was going through it, I was just, some things I was like thinking I could gain so much more if I had different approaches. But at the time I didn't use them. And now I'm kind of more trained in them. And it's something I'm looking forward to taking into my dissertation and exploring.
There's a few questions that would be worth sort of maybe connecting together. So one is leading on from that comment, whether you could use the degree to pursue a psychology-related PhD, having started with a bachelor's degree in psychology, then doing this MA, could you then go and do a psychology-related PhD and a career in psychology or psychiatry? I don't think it would be a disadvantage. What do you think?
So for myself, I also want to pursue hopefully the clinical psychology doctorate, and I've talked to people on interview panels. And for them, a degree like this, as novel as it is and as different as it is compared to doing another degree that kind of is in a master's that's in psychology, I think it really gives you a more fleshed out application compared to, you know, what other people might have. So I think on doctoral panels for when you're, and PhD panels when you're wanting to pursue a PhD in psychology. They want to see that you're a well-rounded candidate, and so many people will have like the same experiences, you know, support work roles, research roles, different things. And I think where you can get alternative experience and complementary experience, that's valuable. And I think there is a bigger push in the NHS, especially for like equality and diversity and inclusion and having more kind of person-centered care and more culturally informed care. And I think this master's is really valuable for providing you with those skills.
Great. There's two questions. One is about practice-oriented engagement in addition to academic research, and the other is about the conducting field work and the time frame for doing your dissertation. So I kind of take those things together. So yes, practice-oriented engagement is valued and could be drawn into a dissertation research. Also, perhaps some of the reflective practice-based module where you reflect anthropologically on work experience. But obviously, you would discuss that with your supervisor as to what sort of field research was possible, what were the ethical clearances necessary for you to work, particularly if it was in the field of mental health, potentially with people who might be vulnerable. So there are issues to consider, but many of our best student dissertations have been those that have come from engagement with practical and practice-oriented work and connecting research to that, some community-based as well. What do we pick up next?
There is, given the length of the program, is it possible to conduct field work within the Oxford time
I've
frame?
tried to just answer that one.
Yeah.
So wondering how the modules divided when completing the MA course part-time. That's up to you. You have 5 compulsory modules to do. You can decide which ones you want to do in one year as opposed to in the second year. You will maybe front load and do more in the first year and more allow more time for the dissertation writing in the second year. How you front load or don't front load will depend on you as an individual. Questions on the MRes. What's expected out of us in terms of the research project proposal in the application? A PhD research group was also mentioned in the end of the mentions, and the supervisor during the course. Can the MRes be a further continuation into a potential PhD project? Well, actually, Nicole, you're best placed to answer this because yes, it does link, and you do need to have a research project. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, yeah, I think the answer is just yes. From the MRes, you have a supervisor from the very start, and you start thinking about your research from the beginning. And if you wish to continue further into a PhD, you're very encouraged to do so. And this is definitely a good place to do that. So I'd say yes.
Given it's a competitive process, we expect to support with a scholarship among the MRes the best research ideas with the clearest conceptualization of a problem to be addressed, the most thought through methodology and practicable, feasible approach to research that would obviously lead on to a viable PhD project. So the more thoughtful and thought through the project you can present, the better your chances of winning the scholarship in relation to others also competing. Would the questions for the scholarship application remain the same even if I was applying for an MRes?
There is just one scholarship application, but as David's saying, yeah, for an MRes, we might want a more rigorously imagined research project. Even within the 500 words, in your application to the degree, you'd be able to expand on the actual project.
There's a question from Mohammed. How does the part-time differ from the full-time if one's to expect self-funding the course? What would be the living expenses be like? Well, I think there's some comment on that was mentioned. John had something, but there's no difference between the MRes and the MA, I don't think, in terms of those questions. I don't know about living expenses in terms of specific figures. Again, maybe ask around would be the answer.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what the government says, if one's applying from overseas, then £13,800 is suggested as a minimum to support yourself living in London. It can be difficult, I know, anticipating costs when maybe you plan to get a part-time job on the side, but yeah, the government say a minimum of 13,800. I don't know, but yeah.
I think it's reasonable. Yeah.
There's a question about developing a research proposal without having direct connection to the community and not wanting to be extractive in doing research. It rather depends whether we're talking about the MA research idea or an MRes research idea. If it's MA research idea, you don't have to develop a great detailed proposal. And your research proposal doesn't necessarily have to involve fieldwork. It can be library based. It can be quite light touch in terms of interviews or group discussions that you want to facilitate. If it's an MRes, then a more detailed proposal is required, including the plans that you would have to establish connection with communities that you were interested in being you would interested to be participants in your study. So you would need to demonstrate how you would have the connections necessary to do the project and to make it feasible. So there's a difference between the MA and the MRes in terms of the expectation in terms of proposal at that level. Support's available for students with disabilities. There is considerable support for people with disabilities to ensure that appropriate adjustments are made according to the needs of the individual and the student. Services and well-being will arrange. You will have, providing you register with them, a study inclusion statement, which will indicate what your particular needs are, and you will work, and your teachers will be aware of this and make necessary adaptations. I think we've had answered the first types of references are preferred. Well, for scholarship applications, we would want academic references for sure, but maybe also references that related to relevant experience or work experience that you could reference in your application.
Yeah, I think that the separate scholarship application, I don't believe it has a section for an academic reference or a work-related reference.
Okay.
I think the degree application might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the degree application we're talking about. This.
Yeah.
Yeah. So degree, I have a degree in anthropology and activist researcher from Dhaka and have an interest in mental health. My CGPA is low, which is equivalent to a 2.2. Is there any chance to get the scholarship if my proposal and CV are good? Yes. We look at each individual case in its own merits, and the academic achievement is not the sole standalone. So if you had a 2.2 rather than 2.1, but you had exceptional other qualities in terms of experience that would be relevant. So I would certainly encourage an application for the scholarship to go forward on that basis.
I can pick up the next one. So yes, for the MRes, if you do have a master's in another field, you're eligible for the MRes. So yes, with the master's in psychology. What is the profile of a strong applicant for the MA and the scholarship? We don't want to be too narrow. So we have people who are coming straight from an undergraduate degree. We have people who have already built up a career in another, perhaps a mental health practitioner field, and they want to come into anthropology and see what that opens up for them. And so, yes, great if you've got a strong academic profile and or maybe a strong career that, in a genuine sense of interest in what these studies could open up for you and what the implications of studying this degree at SOAS could have for maybe contributing back to the world at this intersection of anthropology and mental health.
So just a couple more here. An application interest from India. No, we don't provide living expenses under the scholarship, unfortunately, for the MA or MRes program. Yes, you can apply to the CAMHRA Scholarship part-time MRes. That is possible. What distinguishes a successful CAMHRA Scholarship recipient from other strong applications? Well, in the short answer is they're stronger. But in terms of academic background, the criteria that John outlined in the presentation, demonstrable indication of how you will use the degree, not just your ability to do it and the quality of your research, but also how this degree will enable you to make the contribution that you want to make to the society or community in which you are working or would like to work in the future.
Do you mind if I make a quick comment there on the use of generative AI? We did see some patterns in the syntax previously, and we are really interested in your unique personalities, ideas, ways of writing. So just a word of caution about using kind of generative AI, which comes across as quite generic and would undermine an application.
So we've got a question here. I wonder if the students here would be happy to share a bit about the research projects they're currently doing. Good question. Any thoughts you'd like to share?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So currently I'm working on a research that looks at the trajectories of young people that have been residents in therapeutic communities for drug addiction in Italy during their adolescence and how that had impacted their coming of age afterwards when they're adults. But I'm building the project. It should be a long-term one. So now it's mainly literature review and just scoping and archive research for now. That's what I'm doing.
So my project is about digital witnessing of media and transmitted trauma. I was focusing it specifically on Palestinian diaspora in the UK, and I wanted to kind of see what kind of effect media consumption has. I am rethinking certain aspects, so I want it to be more also looking at digital witnessing as an agentive practice in mobilizing people in political action. But that's something I'm discussing with my dissertation supervisor, but that's the gist of my idea.
Fantastic. Lived experience, is there a recommended way to disclose lived experience in the application? Interruption of my academic trajectory due to personal circumstances. How should this be addressed? You are absolutely encouraged to say what you want in terms of the trajectory and how your lived experience has produced an unusual pathway, but also emphasizing the extensive experience in lived experience research, again, much valued. I don't think you would not be, you should not be discouraged by the fact that you have gaps in your CV because of health challenges. We will look at those all in their totality and look at all the attributes and characteristics and qualities that you bring. If advanced to the interview phase for the scholarship, what would the interview be about? The interview will be a short interview to find out a bit more about your motivation for doing the scholarship if you are shortlisted, and what you intend to, how it will be important in your career, and maybe some specific questions picked up from your application. Is there paid research or professional opportunities available for MA students? Not as a rule for MA students. By chance, there might be research assistant opportunities, but it's not something that we would normally offer, depending on what research is going on in the centre. Other than the final dissertation, are there other assessments to complete during the term for the MA? Yes, there are written assignments, usually 2 written assignments for each module, one in the first halfway through or some way through the semester, one at the end, of different lengths. And different modules have different assignment requirements. There's also a student participation assessment. Presentations in class is sometimes one component of that. The attendance register is one component of that. We expect regular complete attendance at face-to-face sessions, and that contributes to your the percentage, a small percentage, 10% for your student participation mark. John, have you picked up any?
Yeah, thanks, David. Does the CAMHRA scholarship imply that the project estimate must be implemented upon completion of the program? No, I mean, when you say the project I submit, that's it. I mean, perhaps you're talking about some applied research, and no, it wouldn't have to be implemented. Great if you can think through ways of actually applying your research, but it's not.
And that's true for the MA, but if it's the MRes, then the proposal you develop for your MRes does need to be an implementable PhD project. So that's the slight difference between the MA and the MRes. I've come from an international relations background, and I've done extensive research in the past on refugee mental health. I've not conducted ethnographic research before, but it really appeals to me as part of my research. Are there modules where I can do ethnographic research in other countries as part of the course? Well, for logistical reasons, you wouldn't be doing research as in the modules, but you might be reflecting on experience that you have. And your dissertation, if you take that as a module, your dissertation could well involve ethnographic research in another country, presuming that there was a detailed and developed and feasible method and relevant contacts and connections with the relevant communities where you wanted to work, all things that you would work out with your dissertation supervisor. Many people do overseas ethnographic research in other countries as part of their dissertations. Not all, and it's not a requirement, but it can be done. But it requires that you have quite well-established links to make it feasible.
Thanks, David. I think that what David's just said has answered, I would hope, this last question. In my MA, my research project needs to visit the field, which is outside of the UK. Yes. But you need to start thinking of that from early on and to kind of set that up so that you can hit the ground running at the end of the teaching semester 2, so that you can go and do your field research wherever it is.
But you can write a dissertation that is based on secondary research material. So that last part of the question is not a requirement, and you can write a very good and extremely well marked, scored dissertation without doing any field work. It's not a requirement. So I think we've come to the end of our time pretty much. Any final comments from our two people who are involved in the program? Would you like to close with any final comments?
Just good luck.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, just bring as much of yourself as you can to this project. Make sure that when you're applying, it's something you're genuinely passionate about, because you have to be involved in it very deeply, especially when you're doing ethnographic research. Yeah.
And if I could just add, do pursue different routes of funding. Please do submit applications to the program, either program, and to the scholarship. But and they are competitive. Please don't be discouraged if you were to not get a place for the scholarship. Fantastic if there are other ways in which you might be able to still join us. And so, yeah.
Yes, if you're offered a place with or without the scholarship, you will very much look forward to seeing you. And the student group itself is a tremendous source of your own of learning as well. The diversity and the rich experiences that come together in any given year is a major asset. And as people have said, SOAS is quite unique in that breadth and diversity of experience and backgrounds that the student body have.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope to see you at SOAS in September.
Thank you, everybody.